I've decided to make a video instead of typing. I've typed this out several times. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a story. It's all true. If it wasn't, I wouldn't waste my time. I have no time to trifle with people's minds and emotions and make up lies. I am a Christian, a born again, Bible believing, Jesus loving Christian. I wasn't always perfect. And back in the day, I was doing federal prison time for selling methamphetamine. After many years in prison, I met a man with an IQ of 160. We became friends. Now, we talked about our entire lives, and I'm going to try to be quickly here. Anyway, so long story short, he began to tell me some incredible things. At first, I used to make fun of him and tease him about it, but then I began to see that, well, that's probably would work out. Anyway, so his story was this. In the 1980s, and I never knew that him to embellish on any of his other stories. They were just quite common, normal stories about life and love and lost and his days as a cave explorer. Anyway, in the 1980s, he was a writer for a science, supernatural phenomena, science fiction, whatever, UFO, Bigfoot, just a whole bunch of different stuff mixed in there. And he was over at a friend's house one day, and the guy says, "Listen, I've been telling you about this guy. I want you to meet him." And so but he wouldn't exactly say up until he was actually seeing him face to face. And then he told him this story. He says, "Don't say nothing to this guy. Just talk to him and tell him I'm going to introduce you. And then you just tell him what you do and your interest." And he's all interested in the UFOs and the Bigfoot. And if he likes you, he's going to show you something that's going to blow your mind. Well, they went next door to the neighbor. They went there, and it was an older gentleman and his wife. And so they introduced, and the guy was very open and talkative and just very intent listening. And so they were talking for a while, and it didn't take long. The guy felt comfortable. He says, "I got something to show you." He took him down into the basement where the neighbor had already seen the video, but they went down to the basement, and this guy had an 8 millimeter film, and it was set up on a projector, and it just pointed right at the wall, and he he turned it on, and it showed from the 1940s. There was a dock, and there was a bunch of people there, and they all had cameras set up, and it flashed around, and it showed different areas of this bay, and there was a ship. And anyway, I guess the media had been invited by the Navy to see this thing. And it was supposed to be some sort of cloaking device on the ship. And I've read about this before. I've seen some stuff on it years ago. It might be called the Manhattan Project. I'm not sure. I don't remember. That might be something else. But anyway, long story short, the ship, when they activated it, it was supposed to cloak and be invisible, but the screen mist came up and the ship vanished. But there was a hole in the water where the ship was, and you could still see it. And he said just after a short time, the water just filled it in and it was gone. Immediately after that, the Navy ordered that military police that were there to seize all the footage from these newspaper people and the media. And this old man had been a military guy, MP. And so it was his job to gather all this seized material. And I don't know if he was the head over the MPs or what, but anyway, he lifted that one reel and kept it for himself. And he had it all those years. And my buddy said that I met in prison He was in there, by the way, for having a felon with a firearm. He got caught with an ounce of marijuana, and then many, many years later, he got caught with his granddaddy's guns on his little acreage in West Virginia, and the feds swooped in on him. It was over a domestic deal, and so the cops got the guns, and then the feds swooped in on him later and arrested him and charged him for felon with a firearm and threw him in federal prison for like 3 or 4 years. So anyway, long story short, that's how I met him, and he ended up telling me that on this ship there was 3 giant Tesla coils, and it was wrapped with copper wire that had plastic insulated around the ship. And he said it basically created an electromagnetic field. It enhanced it. And the water, the salt water, he said everything enhanced it. And that's how it was able to pass through time. Now, he, in his own mind, because he was so intelligent, he said he had figured out an equation that time stands still. I mean, it's a theory of Einstein, but he said he actually came up with a formula. But time stood still, and time goes from past, present to future, but it stands still. We pass through it. We pass through time. And I might be getting confused there. I think that's what they claim, time goes from past, present to future. But he found that time actually stands still, and we actually pass through time. So anyway, that was one of his theories, and he claimed he had some equation, but he also said he knew how to build one of these machines that he could pass into the future or the back, depending on the polarity. And but you had to have the spark gap of the coil correct, or something bad would happen. Well, when he was telling me this story, he said I remembered in the 1980s of Unsolved Mysteries, a case where there was out in California in the woods, there was an electromagnetic explosion that came from the woods, and it knocked this guy's car out. And when he ran up into the woods, there was fire burning on the ground. And I was thinking about that, and I said to him, I says, Henry, what would it be like in an explosion? Well, actually, I asked him the question first, and when he described to me what would happen, he said there would be an electromagnetic explosion, there would be fire on the ground all around where your little time machine was. And I remembered that video from the 80s and of Unsolved Mysteries, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's already happened. There's already people doing it. And he said, yeah, it would kill you if you were standing so close, and it would knock out cars and houses, just electrical fields. It would knock them out. And so many hundreds of yards away. Well, anyway, long story short, I says, well, why didn't you ever do it? He says, I never had the money. He said at the time, and this was 10 years before this, he was contemplating. He says, I would have needed $50,000. And he said, I just ain't got the money and never have had it like that. And so then, anyway, this happened years ago in the year 2003 is when he told me this story. Well, Henry's since passed away. We became friends after we got out of federal prison. We became friends. He even actually lived with me for a time, and he moved on to California, and then he passed back through, lived in Chicago a short time, then went back out to California, and he got a bunch of tumors and cancer, and then he went back out to the East Coast where he was born, in that area, general area. I don't think it was West Virginia, but he passed away about 4 years ago. But he never did really do much with his life, but he was so smart. He was one of them guys that was so intelligent, but he wouldn't even clip his toenails. It was kind of weird. He was kind of weird that way. But I'll never forget the story, and I believe him, and I believe his theories and what he saw and how he had it all figured out, how it would work, would really work. And I truly believe that our government's been doing it since then. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Be blessed and have a good day.